So welcome, thank you for being here. Nicole, can you say hi and introduce yourself, as well as maybe give a little background on what Kellanova, the company brand you represent? Yeah.
So Nicole Vinson, I lead global digital media and Omni-Shopper experience for Kellanova. Kellanova is a brand new organization. We're about 9 months old now. We spun off from the Kellogg company in October of last year. It's not working? Yeah. Ooh, that's better. And so really within my remit, I'm really responsible for building the next generation of capability for Kellanova. And that really includes ensuring that we are future forward and that we are building the capabilities that we're going to need, especially as we talk about AI and advanced analytics, and really connecting the entire kind of full funnel, if you will, and ensuring that you have the right data, technology, and measurement to be able to really optimize not only your media investments, but to connect that full consumer journey and drive orchestration and personalization, as well as tactic and channel optimization, and end-to-end creative and content. So I feel like I work on everything in the kitchen sink sometimes.
And speaking of the kitchen, tell us the brands that are in the family.
Yeah, great question. So I'm sure you have many of our products in your pantry today. Those consist of Pringles, Pop-Tarts, Cheez-It, Rice Krispies Treats. We have a whole bunch of cereal brands under the Kellogg master brand name in rest of world outside of the US, and also a big noodles business, and then also frozen, so Eggo waffles, Morningstar Farms, and then we also have RX Bar in our portfolio.
Great, and before we start, tell us what your favorite Kellanova brand is and your personal consumption habit.
Oh gosh, if it's me, it's Cheez-Its and wine. All the time. You can absolutely find a great Cheez-It to go with whatever varietal you have that you're pouring. If it's my kids we're talking about, I'm going to say it's going to be Eggo and probably Pringles in our household. So
yeah, we're a massive Pringles household as well. But Cheez-Its and wine, good tip for the can crowd. All right, so I would say last year at Cannes was all about artificial intelligence, and maybe in the broadest terms, it was kind of a buzzword, but now I think we're getting more specific about what artificial intelligence is. Could you describe, maybe for the crowd, assuming everybody doesn't know exactly what artificial intelligence in advertising and marketing is, what it specifically means for you all?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence, right, is really about the application of advanced analytics and different machine learning modules or models that are really helping you to better understand where you can drive better business outcomes. When we think about that in the terms of marketing, I like to bucket it into a couple of different places, and I kind of mentioned this already, but it's really about how are we driving spend optimization? How are we better planning and buying media so that we are ensuring that every dollar is going to unlock as much growth as possible, and going after those high growth audiences with the highest propensity to buy us. I also look at this from, again, like a channel and tactic perspective, and how can you really optimize those investments to, again, what are the jobs to be done and the business outcomes that you're trying to drive. End-to-end creative and content is another big area in which I think AI is going to really allow us to get to one-to-many personalization at scale. And then also through the AI is really how do we get to better measurement and better predictability of the outcomes. And so that comes with a lot of that tactic and channel optimization. So again, that we're really optimizing every one of those dollars.
That's a great outline of how AI, I think, will impact a lot of advertising and marketing. Kellanova spawned off one of the most traditional or one of the most classic CPG companies, and I think a lot of CPGs right now are trying to think about how they reform themselves into modern companies. And how did AI get implemented in the company? Like, was that an easy thing to do, or is it you're kind of at the cutting edge of that?
Yeah, I would say that AI getting started, it really needs to kind of be approached through multiple layers of an organization. It's also really great when your CEO and your CFO are very much top-down sponsors of the power that AI and machine learning and advanced analytics can unlock for your business and that growth algorithm. But really, I think for us, we've been kind of hitting AI and advanced analytics across multiple domains across our organization, whether that's revenue growth management, whether that's supply chain, whether that's marketing, or even procurement and HR, for example. So I think that it really starts with, having a solid business problem, and how can AI or advanced analytics really help to solve that problem. It's understanding what data are you actually going to need to be able to come to a data-driven decision to solving that problem. And then how are you also thinking about the governance around the models that you're building? So I think, from a Kellogg or a Kellanova perspective, ethics and values is really core to our brand and will always be. And so from a Kellanova perspective, we've set up not only kind of data privacy councils, but also AI councils. And those are really made up of a cross-functional team of not only our legal team, but our privacy and regulatory team, our tech teams, and then our business domain teams, so that as we're coming up with different use cases that we can apply this great technology or these tools to, that we're doing so in an ethical way that reduces bias, and really just continues to ensure that we will maintain the trust that our consumers have given us in the data that they share with us.
Okay, so it starts with a business problem, and then you've got executives who sponsor it, and then obviously your team who's trying to implement, and then these kind of cross-functional teams. Was there anything about implementing AI in the company that was difficult or that didn't go right that you've now had to deal with?
Yeah, I think, if I go back to like the infrastructure, it's really easy to set up AI use cases in a sandbox and bring a bunch of different data sets together in a really quick and agile way. But if you don't actually have the data infrastructure to be able to do this cross-regionally, cross-domains, cross-market, et cetera, it becomes really challenging to be able to scale your use cases. And so I think that's a really important takeaway for organizations that are starting to get into the AI space, is it takes a lot of work to drive the harmonization, the integration of your data, to make sure that it's clean, it's democratized, and it's accessible. And I can't stress the importance of taxonomy at the end of the day. It's sometimes like it's not the sexy part of doing the fun things that the AI will output for you. But if you don't have that taxonomy and that level of granularity to really understand what's happening, to be able to pull that apart and to ask the model different questions, then it's going to be really challenging for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think right now one of the hottest topics in your business is understanding the consumer journey to buying products. I think there's also traditional lines between shopper marketing and brand marketing. So with like a different consumer journey, how do you think how are you using AI to figure that part of the process out?
Yeah, so one of the use cases that we have started to really look at is how do we think about like spend optimization based on the funnel itself. When you look at the very top of the funnel, there's usually some KPIs that you're looking at from a media lens. When you get to the middle of the funnel, it might be a different set of KPIs, and then similarly at purchase might look different. But the approach that we took was really to better understand what are the KPIs we should be optimizing to at the top of the funnel. What are those indicators that this campaign is going to have a higher success rate of that business outcome that we were trying to drive? So for example, one of the ones that we looked at the last 2 years of media performance data from this very top of the funnel. And what we uncovered through that was that ads that were running that had a higher creative effectiveness or even a higher creative pre-testing score had a higher rate of video completion rate, for example. And why this is really important was to understand that there's a significant amount of our investments today that we do force view when we do our media buy at the top of the funnel. But that comes at a price premium. And so when we actually started to look at this, we could start to unpack the fact that if our ads had a really high creative effectiveness score, and we know that our video completion rates are strong, then maybe we don't need to even be buying those placements on a force view, for example. So that creates a lot of spend optimization in your mix. So really starting to like pull apart and look at all this data, and the machine learning is what is allowing you to really look at all of that data, which is a really large amount of data across all your campaign history, different media platforms, different funnel stages, and even different creatives and audiences. That's a lot of complexity. So this is really allowing us to create the next generation of playbooks of like what best looks like, and then how do you actually optimize to get there.
Yeah, I think about that a lot because there's like this myth maybe of a consumer journey, but it really every single consumer has a different journey, which is what the AI is allowing you now to almost optimize every single consumer journey
Exactly.
in a different way.
Yeah, and I would say even, we're starting to do a lot of great work with different clean rooms, with our retailer clean rooms, and in CPG, having that last mile or like that purchase data has always been the piece of the puzzle that we never really had. And now with a lot of retail partnerships and media partnerships, we're able to really start to stitch together the entire journey now. And we can then start to pull that apart to identify areas of opportunity to optimize or to close up or to better leverage other data signals that you can optimize towards to get to a better outcome.
Yeah, one part of that I think is interesting, I read a stat that 70% of, before COVID, 70% of grocery sales were impulse purchases. And if you've shopped with kids, that's probably like the highest end of impulse purchases. But now that's shifting to digital behavior. And I wonder if you think about that at all, and kind of these retail signals help you figure out how to drive a little more of impulse purchase, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think impulse, especially in the digital environment, is great, but you have to ensure that you have product on shelf for that to be picked and pulled from, no matter where they're fulfilling it from. And so those real-time signals from your supply chain or in-stock availability, all of those pieces are going to be even more important as you work with not only your sales teams, but also with your marketing teams, because you want to drive kind of the maximum full funnel experience for that consumer and then maximize your investment across those different channels.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to take in different signals around supply and demand in different areas.
Absolutely.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions you'd like to ask?
So you mentioned Eggos, and my daughter loves Stranger Things, so Eggos have become like big in our household. And I know there's been a partnership with Netflix on some of the packaging things. Are you sharing data for any of the like media that you're buying with?
Yeah, I can't talk. Yeah, I can't talk like deeply about kind of the Netflix relationship. It's kind of an ongoing area of opportunity for us, but I would say that anytime that a brand is able to be part of culture and to be relevant in the moment, there's absolutely an opportunity for a brand to be playing there. So similarly, with Netflix and Pop-Tarts and the Unfrosted movie that just came out with Jerry Seinfeld, obviously lots of opportunities to be optimizing, and also like really thinking about how AI can like help you to better predict the demand and the uptick that you're going to see from activity like that is definitely an area of opportunity.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the Pop-Tarts response to the Seinfeld movie, it's pretty awesome. They pull in Seinfeld talking about how he took the Pop-Tarts character, and then they take the Soup Nazi and his other characters as sort of like a revenge for taking the Pop-Tarts character. So that was very well done, very of the moment. Question?
In terms of the creative effectiveness score you talked about, right? Do you rely on AI in helping you create the creative once you have sort of analyzed your data and all the resources?
So I would say the journey is still forming, right? Like there's so much to do with a lot of the AI content creation tools today, but I think an area that we are leaning in really heavily on is around creative analytics, and really understanding the parts and the pieces of your creative that is driving the response that you're getting, those behavioral indicators. And so there's a lot of different things that we're doing with some different partners today to analyze your creative to even just be able to ensure that it's even meeting platform best practices, right? Like as a hygiene metric. Like who wants to traffic an ad to like Meta and it doesn't even meet best practices? Like you're basically saying, I'm okay with failing before I even hit play, right? So that's kind of like a hygiene piece. But then there's a step that you can go even beyond that, which is like analyzing all of your creative that is run on a platform for the last 3 to 5 years, and the performance metrics that you would have on that, and be able to like start to identify and isolate which pieces of your creative are really driving the best response or engagement or intention, for example, and then starting to document those as like your new brand best practices on these specific platforms, right? And that's really what then you can start to then feed back into your creative cycles, into informing upfront, like what are the pieces that are really working the hardest of, our distinctive brand assets? Is it copy? Is it different calls to action? What does that look like? So definitely not trying to get to a paint by numbers, if you will, but like freedom in a framework of like, these might be the next 5 things in a brand on this ad product and this platform and this funnel stage that are gonna have the highest propensity to convert, for example.
There's so much opportunity in the creative space, especially as you get to one-to-one kind of targeting of ads, one-to-one personalization of creative. Can be done now. I don't think many people are doing it. It'll make for a very different...
One-to-many.
Yeah.
I like that better.
One-to-many? It's cheaper that way. But it'd make for a different Lions Festival if we had one-to-one creative. What about the KPIs? Talk more about that, because you did mention that earlier, like KPIs in an AI-driven world are different. Traditionally, CPG companies have used a lot of mixed media modeling. And so how do you think that what are the new KPIs that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still trying to figure out what are all those new KPIs we should be looking at. But I think that the power of the AI is allowing us to just process so much larger data sets than we've ever been able to process before. And so I think that the speed of like honing those insights is a lot faster now to be able to put that back into practice of your media campaigns. So I like to think about it as, we're constantly creating that flywheel loop and determining kind of, again, by funnel stage, by audience, by creative, like what are those levers that we should be looking at? And then what are those signals that are telling us, is this a behavioral indicator that's like, allowing us to push consumers to that next stage of the funnel? Or is this a hygiene metric? Or is this a brand and business outcome? Or is this a commercial KPI that even ladders back up to our larger organization? So I think we're getting smarter about how we think about the different layers of measurement. And then, where does MMM fall as like a planning tool into the channels that you can be in and those scenario plans that you can kind of start to put in play? But then what are those real-time metrics that you can actually start to feed in to really optimize your investments right now versus a look-back window of 3, 6, 9, 12 months ago, for example?
Yeah, to tighten that window is really important. And a lot of the algorithms that I know we work with now also have multi-KPIs, so you can say, all right, well, someone who's going to watch an ad, but also likely to purchase, and maybe also likely to be an ongoing a big lifetime customer for us. So never before have algorithms been able to do that, and that's an interesting part of AI as well. Sometimes that also makes people nervous, like in terms of AI replacing people. What do you think the right answer is?
So Google had said that by 2030, 80% of marketing will be augmented by AI, which like that stat alone is mind-boggling. And I believe it. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you're not competing with AI. AI is a tool. You're competing with another marketer who's using AI that might be using it more efficiently and more effectively than you are. And so I think that this is the time is now. AI is here, it's not going away. But like, how are you starting to test and learn and be part of, that playground or that sandbox and start capturing those learnings and what works and what doesn't work through that process so that you can continuously get better over time. And I think that the longer that you wait to jump in is gonna be that much further behind your competitor or the next marketer that's already using this stuff.
Yeah, I think we've seen that evolution or revolution once already in the past couple of decades with digital media. Like, I think there were some people who believed early days, like this will displace all media, and it actually reinvented it in a way, and the companies who got ahead of it are the companies that are now still existing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any other questions from the audience on AI or any of the Kellanova brands?
Go ahead. Oh. Anybody else have a question?
I've got some rapid fire questions, but if anybody has anything, and maybe we don't have to make them as.
I'll make a quick one. I walked in late, so just in case it was already asked, but what are you most excited about with AI kind of for the future? And on the other vein, what are you kind of most weary of, I would say?
Ooh, most excited about, I think, is finally this reality that we can actually get to personalization at scale. I think it's always been a pipe dream, but like through the AI technology, we can actually create content that way and do it for at or a lower cost than we're producing content right now. So I think that for me gets really exciting. I think the things that worry me about AI, again, is really bias and the ethics behind a lot of it and the data transparency and really how the algorithms are working. I think there's a lot of things, from a company perspective that you can do to really start to set yourself up and put the right processes and the best practices in place. And I think we've done a great job of that with our AI council and our ethics council to kind of help guide us along the way and bring in different schools of thoughts and diversity of thinking so that we can approach that in the most ethical and responsible way that we can. But yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest ones for me.
Does hiring matter to that too? Like hiring people who understand?
Absolutely. I guess you're absolutely right. Like talent is going to look a lot differently, and also just the upskilling and the change management around this transformation, this next S curve that we're going on. And so I think, companies that are leaning in, that are really starting to start to create common language around AI and advanced analytics, ones that are talking about data privacy and security and ethics and governance, those are the companies that are going to, I think, go a lot further in this area. But absolutely, this is an investment in the future. And if you're not starting to lay down these foundations now, it's going to be a lot harder to catch up. Is it Moore's Law that everything changes, right?
Yeah, every 18 months.
Every 18 months, but I feel
it's happening faster.
But it's going faster now, right? That was every 18 months, and that was 5 years ago. So think about how fast it's going right now, and that kind of freaks me out. And so this FOMO of fear of getting left behind is real.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of joked about it before, but I wonder what this festival looks like in 5 or 10 years when there is more AI-driven creative, when there's more AI-driven CMOs and data-driven marketers. Does this change? It probably evolves.
Absolutely.
There's new awards for the best AI
I think there's
creative.
even a session at Cannes going on. What does 2050 look like
right.
at Cannes? So
2050. I don't know if I'm going to be here. Any other questions from the crowd? Yes.
Can you share maybe a campaign that you're most proud of, whether it's where you are now or somewhere else?
Like using AI or just
I
a
think-
campaign that I'm proud of?
I think that you're going away from the AI thing for a moment, just one that you're proud of.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say our Pop-Tarts Bowl that we executed earlier this year is probably hands down one of the best executions that I've seen of really tapping into culture, having, you always want your content and your message to go viral, and it definitely did with that program. But I think also just really capturing a net new growth audience for us on that brand was pretty significant. And so it's been really to see sort of the trajectory that one program has had and the halo effect that it's had, which I think is creating some really interesting spaces for that brand to go into.
It's pretty fun brand. You have pretty fun brands to work with, I would say.
Crazy good.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to do some rapid fire questions. We'll get to know Nicole a little bit more. All right, and I'll also ask for some crowd participation. So if you want to raise your hand, we'll see which ones you feel like. All right, if there's two types of people in the world, salty and sweet, what are you?
Salty.
Okay. Can we get a show of hands on the salties? All right, I'm a salty too. A really key question that probably faces all Pop-Tart eaters is toasted or straight out of the box?
Toasted.
Yeah. Could we get a hand for toasted? Never had a Pop-Tart. All right, there's an opportunity for a new customer.
Might.
Okay, well, do you want to come up for the rest of the session?
You'll have to try one now.
Okay, maybe kick off with that. All right, this is a really difficult one. Can you describe the shape of a Pringle in 3 words or less?
Crispy, curved, and delicious.
All right, I like that. Very well done. If a marketer's mind is broken into 2 halves, which is the data and the creative, which way do you sway?
Data.
I would imagine I think the majority of CMOs today sway creative if you walk around town. But my prediction is that also starts to balance over the next.
I think that the modern CMO today has to be everything. You have to be part data scientist, part analyst, part insights, part innovation, part data and tech. And then change management and upskilling. So I think that the modern CMO actually has more responsibilities today than they have ever before because the world is just changing so rapidly. And brand management looks very different, I think, when you start to harness all of the different data, the tech, the tools, et cetera, to drive your business.
And revenue, too. I think a lot of CMOs have always been challenged with sales, but now I think more so than ever, the sort of direct-to-consumer, revenue-driven mindset is a bigger part of what the CMO is challenged with.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, final question. If, other than this exact moment right now, if there's one other thing you're looking forward to this week in Cannes, what is it?
Creative inspiration. Really, like, we have to get back to the creative, and we're in a creative effectiveness, I think, is a huge theme that you'll see, like, right now within Cannes, but I think just in the industry as well. Media inflation alone is driving, some erosion in your return on investment. And if the creative effectiveness does not continue to surpass that inflation point, you're going to be in a scary spot. And so I just think that, we really have to be better connecting with consumers, getting to stronger insights, better briefs to our agency partners, and really taking an audience-first approach as well. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So when you go to the Palais and you try to watch creative, like what are you looking for? Are you looking for the trends that may be coming? Or are you looking for tricks in how creative is done? Like, what's the best insight you think you glean from seeing other people's stuff?
I think honestly, it's what are those like big brand building moments? Like, how do we get back to like really big brand building, that emotional, that deep connection, that long term, return that you're like looking for as a marketer? I think there's been a big shift to more short term, over the years, and also the collapse of the funnel has not really helped us in any of that. But like, we have to go back to building great and brilliant iconic brands. And that takes, really solid insights and understanding of your consumers and figuring out how you fit in to that conversation.
And isn't it harder than ever to fit in because you have to kind of tell that story in 3 to 8 seconds rather than 30 seconds?
Yeah, it's really hard.
That's why you've got a job. It's wonderful. So I wonder, like, how that impacts creative, like, because I think social creative changed a lot, and that celebrity or whatever the big moment came up front. Now I think the challenge is even faster, that you've got to get that impact out.
Yeah,
so
well, I
fast.
think it also goes back to like, what part of the funnel are you focusing on, and like, what are the jobs to be done of your brand? I mean, if you've got a consideration problem, then there's a different set of tools in your toolbox that you're going to go after. If you're about awareness, then you might have longer form storytelling that you can go after, right? So I think it goes back to like, what are the jobs to be done in your brand, and where do you have the biggest opportunity?
Yeah, which is kind of like the Seinfeld piece was how it's probably a couple minutes long, right?
Oh yeah, that was a long form.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing to put something out that is that funny for that long.
Yeah. And then you can cut it up into small little
Exactly.
8-second spots.
Yes. Snackable. Amazing. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you. I learned more about your brands than I ever knew through this process. So Kellanova making a big impact now in the next generation of your brand marketing. So thank you, and really
Thank you.
impressive what you're doing with AI. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys.